camera's on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Parent Pivot podcast. I'm Steve Cummings.
And I'm Julia Cummings.
I didn't have any hair to fix, but we were trying to get nice for the camera. So we're here, and it's pretty amazing. We're like already the last week of May. June is here.
Yeah, summer's here.
School's out. School's out. So
at least where we are.
Yeah. And things. So anyway, we so glad you've joined us. We are here to talk about what?
Well, we were having a conversation yesterday with a group of people, and somebody posed the question, do you feel like when we are dealing with our adult children and we are, blessing them, helping them, whatever financially, do you think that it has to be the same for everyone?
Yeah, and there's two roads to go on that, and we're just gonna talk about them. So
right, and this is our opinion.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong here because you may already decide, hey, you know what, I don't want to have to deal with anything, so let's just give everybody the same amount. Then that's fine.
Yeah. And maybe you have the ability to do that. Some people don't have the ability, but can help here and there.
Right.
Which is more the boat we're in.
Right.
So, we have 4 kids. If we help someone with, say, a $500 bill or something, do we feel like we have to then give everybody else $500?
Right. Because we're looking for needs. This is not a hey, here's a Christmas gift. We're giving everybody $5,000.
Right.
It's like, first of all, we don't have that kind of money. So we're always looking for needs because it was done for us when we were young and raising these 4 kids. And I remember, like the car would, need some attention, and it was going to cost, $500,000. It's like, okay, we're sweating it out. And next thing you know, one of our parents would step in and do that. Or like my parents, mom and dad, if you're listening out there, we still haven't forgotten how much you helped with splitting the cost of tuition at Christian school, which we would not have been able to afford otherwise.
Yeah.
So it was always based on need and things. And that's how kind of things have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And neither of us had parents that spoiled us. I would say we're more spoiled right now in some sense. Like my mom, she has a little more money in her older age. And so she has given all of her 5 kids a chunk of money for, like, say, Christmas or something.
That's
not individual money.
Yeah, no.
That's together money.
To the families, to the couple. And that's key because we will mention that here in a little while.
Yeah. So, in any case, I would say the answer to that is no, unless it is I'm giving a Christmas gift and everybody should be getting the same amount.
Yeah. In fact, just last night at family dinner, 4 of the 5 kids were sitting around the table with mom.
Uh-huh.
We were there, and I heard, one of the, not you, but one of your siblings just talk about her college experience. And she kept saying, Dad paid for this, Dad paid for that. And he just said, go do it. And he was helping her in a space that she did not have the money or the time to do it. Right. And they're just like, hey, we've got the resources. Go ahead and do it. Now, you had 2 brothers sitting there and yourself. I didn't hear one bit of like, well, he didn't do that for me.
No, because they did other things for us.
Exactly.
So when I was about 48, I think. That's when I went back and got my master's in marriage and family therapy.
Right.
My dad had died recently, and my mom approached me. She knew that because I had started on my master's back before I had kids, got pregnant, and said, what, I can't do both. So I said, someday I'll go back when my kids are older. So when my youngest started high school is when I went back to work on my master's.
Pause. And Dad took care of dinner every night. There was 5 things I could make.
That was only 2 nights.
Oh, okay. Sorry, 2 nights a week. Dang it. I still took care of dinner 2 nights a week.
You did. Anyway, so my mom approached me and she said, you know what? I have this IRA account and it has this amount of money in it. It will cover you going back and getting your master's. And I know Dad would really want you to do that. And
she said, we did it for all the other kids and we want to do it for you.
Yeah. Well, they did not pay for everybody's education across the board.
Okay. I stand corrected.
That was not something that they took on. I think that they helped, but they didn't take on. I feel a little more spoiled because of this, because my parents were, by the time I was almost 50, in a much better financial situation.
Yeah, but we still couldn't afford it. We would
would have gone into debt to be able to do that. And my dad had died, so my mom had gotten a lot of money. And she found this IRA account that had this cash, this money in it, and she was just going to cash it in and use that for my education. So she was in a different position. Now, all the other siblings had all gotten their, I have two brothers that are attorneys, a brother who had gone to seminary, and a sister who had gotten her teaching credential. And so they had all gone post graduation, and I had not really done that. I also wasn't a good student when I was younger. So
okay, time out. She says this. Yes, in her undergraduate years, she had to take extra courses, more units.
Took me 8 years to get through.
Just to raise her grade level enough to graduate with a degree in what?
Sociology.
Okay, now this is the part where I get to brag on my wife, because now she works on her master's and gets straight A's.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. I might have gotten 1B. I'm not sure, but yeah.
I might have gotten 1B. Anyway, that's not the point of where we're going. We're just trying to tell a story here, or give you our narrative, our experience of things that we've gone through. Where both of our parents filled in with needs when we needed them.
And even a few years ago, Steve's parents, when Steve was out of a job, gave us a truly tremendous gift for us that really got us through that period of time.
Which is true.
Which was really tough.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yeah. So when you're in an executive role and suddenly you lose your job and you're,
making $13 an hour at Home Depot.
An hour at Home Depot. That was a rough period of time for Steve particularly, but a little scary for me. But in any case, those are our financial woes.
Right.
But the point is that our parents have come in and helped us when we needed it. And it is our goal with our children to be able to help them when they need to.
Right. And we've done that and things. So we'll do it privately to the couple. It's not like we announce it in our family thread. Right. And the kids all know this. They've all been recipients at some level of doing that. So it's not like you haven't done anything for me. And there's varying amounts too.
Yeah.
It's not like, nobody's holding something like, well, you gave them X amount of dollars and did this, and why didn't you do that for us? And again, we're not doing major Christmas. We don't give cash away. That's not what we do.
Yeah, we don't have $5,000 to give away.
So we're looking for needs. So why are we going down this road?
Yeah. So the point of the whole thing is you do see some parents of adult children, well, and even when they're younger, some struggle with this idea that what I do for one, I have to do for another. And I will tell you, actually, this is the interesting piece is my dad was actually more that way. All the other kids had homes. And I had approached my dad when we were, I don't know, maybe 5 years married, and asked him if he would be willing to do an equity share with us, which is basically, hey, you put the down payment, we'll carry everything when we go to sell, and we can set the time period that we're going to be in the house. We each get half of the profit. My dad wouldn't do that because he didn't do it for the other kids. So,
however, they did help us survive in Orange County when we couldn't afford to live in Orange County.
Absolutely.
And that was like, hey, we could move into your childhood home and pay the same rent we paid before and live in a house in a neighborhood that you grew up in that should have been $3,500 a month rent. Yeah. And we paid $900.
Yeah. Yeah.
So crazy. I mean, because they didn't need the money. The house was paid for.
Right.
So they showed their generosity in different ways. And the rest of the kids didn't have a problem with that.
Not that I'm aware of. They might have. Honestly, I don't know. But they all had their own homes. And
they were excited for us, though.
We did not. As Steve was in ministry, we just didn't have the money to buy a home in Orange County. And so we didn't own a home until we were in our 50s. And
it didn't bother us.
And living in Oregon.
It didn't bother us. If you guys came over to our house, the first thing you say is, hey, what a great place, da-da-da. We don't sit there and say, oh, we only rent or we own. It doesn't matter. This is your home. It just never bothered me.
Yeah. It was a great place for our kids. But back to the point at hand was if either of our parents had felt like they had to give the other person, another
The other
child,
siblings, right?
the same thing that they gave us, then they wouldn't have been able to ever help. And that's because you can't do it across the board all the time. I mean, if you're very wealthy, yes, of course you can.
Well, and even with that, let me just tell a story, and I'll keep it very vague.
Very
vague. And that is, I ran into a guy who just, had the resources and things like that. We were talking about that, and
Let's not give the amounts.
Oh, we'll give the amounts. Okay.
Well, don't give the amounts.
That's what I said.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, this person had sold his business, very wealthy, and was giving a very substantial gift to his 2 kids. And the 2 kids said, well, what about my spouse? Mm. And so then it became that same amount for the spouse. So again, this is a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And what I heard in that was entitlement.
Yeah, like
from the adult child, like, well, hey, because it's like, is that not enough money? Because trust me, the amount of money was plenty, and things, and it became, the parents are being very generous, of course, and just because there's a pile of money there, and your kids start, claiming it, it's almost like the prodigal son saying, hey, I want my inheritance and I want it right now. And whenever we read that story, there's that sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
I want to go live my own life. You owe it to me. It's almost like it belongs to me. So give it to me.
Yeah. And to be real honest, maybe it doesn't even bother the parents when they're able to do that because they are able to do it. For us, that would be impossible.
Right.
But maybe to them, like the equivalent would be like $100 to us. I don't know. Because I don't have that kind of way of living.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to, do you want to deal, as I was walking today, I was thinking about this. Do you want to deal with a child who has an adult child who has that kind of attitude? Like we were listening in our the group we were in yesterday, mm-hmm. and they had 3 adult kids, mm-hmm. and they just like we've described. There's the other 2 that have needs. So like for example, with us, we have our oldest. They both have sustainable income. They're married almost 13 years coming up here. They've got 3 kids, a 4th on the way. They are out and been living and doing that on their own, and great. The other 3 are still in that process of having sustainable income.
Right, they're trying to figure it out
with jobs, and so as the needs pop up, we're trying to step in when we can, mm-hmm. and sometimes we're just like, okay, we're going to pray with you. That things happen. So we can't always do that. Mm-hmm. But none of the kids are looking at that fact. And I think our oldest knows that, the other 3 need it more. But like, for example, they're coming out to join us here in Georgia next week. And we never get to love on them. So we helped get them out here because they need 4 plane tickets, with a growing family. And we need to have a SUV while we're here, so I'm renting one. But just fun stuff because I'm all about family memories. Mm-hmm. I get to take my grandson, my oldest grandson, to his very first live baseball game. Am I excited about how much I spent on it? No. In fact, I didn't tell anybody. It's like none of their business. It's about a family memory, and so I want to be generous to do that, and things. But where else was I going with that? Oh.
So let's talk about that generosity piece, because that's part of the reason why we're having this discussion with this group yesterday is we were talking about generosity.
And specifically, we're going through Practicing the Way with John Mark
Comer.
And I'll put a link to that in our show notes because it's awesome stuff. It's going through fasting, generosity, Sabbathing, solitude, prayer, wonderful stuff about being an apprentice of Jesus, and we're enjoying it. So we're having this discussion on generosity.
And allowing, actually, I guess the biggest piece that I would say is my biggest takeaway is when I have money, no matter how much it is, perhaps I'm asking God to say, hey, what do you want me to do with this? Where do you want me to spend? Where do you want me to give? So that would be the approach that I would say.
Right. I have an excess.
If you've been blessed with extra money or money that can bless others on some level, ask that question. Where would you like me to give, Lord? Where?
Right.
And maybe there's something going on with one of your kids that you don't even know about. Like maybe they don't talk to you about finances.
Right.
And the Lord prompts your heart to say, you know what? Give this child this amount.
And on that note, our youngest and his wife just moved.
Yeah.
And they've never asked us, for anything. They don't tell us things. They might say, oh, we're struggling, whatever. We've sent them money for groceries, and that's just blessed them. We get little crying emojis on our phone. But we knew they're moving. We know it takes a moving truck, and you got to stock up your fridge, and there's other things that come in and whatever. And so us and your mom pitched in, and we gave them enough to, God moved on both our hearts, because we both had the same feelings separate from each other.
Yep.
And I said, well, I'm thinking of an amount. And Julie goes, I'm thinking of an amount too. I go, what's your amount? Turns out it was the same amount. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And things.
Yeah. So that's where I would encourage you to be generous, but to also ask for wisdom in that generosity. And like I said, the person that we were talking about before who gave their children a big amount of money, we're passing judgment on their kids based on the story, but maybe there's more to the story. So forgive us if that sounded super judgmental.
Mostly from me.
But if you have those kind of resources, I mean, I've heard of people buy cars for their kids, buy homes for their kids, so if that is something that you're able to do and you're able to do it across the board, then bless you. That's great. God gave you that money for a reason. But in this subject of generosity, I think it's important to just be asking the questions.
Right. And I know too, with our kids, and when we give, they still have grateful, thankful hearts, whether it's $50 or $100, or, you help them fix a car, or, whatever we can do. They always say thank you. I always hear them say thank you.
Yeah.
And things. So I think that's for me. I mean, scripture does talk about, to those who have been faithful with little, they're going to be given much, so if there's this entitlement thing, it's like, do I really want to go down that road? Do I want peace in my family? That's going to be up to you. We're trying to raise the issue of being generous stewards and blessing people, because God gives us an abundance more than we need.
Yeah.
We sit there and think, I'm only supposed to give 10%. I own the other 90. It doesn't work that way in the new covenant. Think of the widow who gave 100% of what she had, and things. So you're going to land on wherever you feel the Spirit leading you in that. I'm not here to change your heart or mind on tithing or whatever. But as you go through the generosity piece with practicing the way, it is gonna make you feel a little uncomfortable.
It is challenging. It is challenging to look at it differently. And if you've been raised in the church, then you've probably been raised with the idea of you tithe 10%, right? You tithe 10%. You tithe 10%. You tithe. And from the time we're very little, mom is sending us with $1 in an envelope to give or whatever.
As long as I'm doing my 10%, I check my box. Okay. The other 90% is mine. We can get new cars. We can expand the house. We can do these trips. We can do whatever. Yeah. Again, if you're looking at right and wrong, that's the wrong way to look at it.
That's extreme. I'm sorry.
As we're having a discussion here on the Parent Pivot podcast, I wouldn't say the wrong way to look at it, but it's what does God want me to, God, you gave me this extra money. What do you want me to do with it here on earth?
Right. And
because in that 90, all I'm saying is my conviction is in that 90%, I can be pretty selfish. I can do a lot of things for myself with that money because I'm justifying I gave 10% away. Right. That's the attitude I'm talking about. That's a little off. That's my conviction is saying, hey, God owns 100% of it. Just check the box and give the 10%. Boy, I feel better now because that's quote unquote you're supposed to do. Go start practicing the way and see what kind of difficult things God brings up with you in generosity. Again, He loves us the same no matter what. That's all my point is.
Right.
She knows what I'm thinking.
I do. I just would word it differently.
Steve and Julia having a little discussion on the Parent Pivot podcast. I've been working in generosity for 17, 18 years, raising money for the kingdom. And I encourage generosity wherever God stirs their heart. It looks different. I can have a widow give $10 a month. I can have another person give 10 million. And I'm celebrating that gift as a generous gift, no matter the amount. The amounts, only that person knows how much is coming in and how much I'm giving. So, people who are billionaires and can give $1 million gift, hey, that's great. That's $1 million gift.
Yeah.
If you're thinking percentages, that's $10 to the rest of us.
Right.
So that's not. I'm not trying to be critical or judge that. I'm just trying to say, hey, God, what do you want me to do with this?
Right. And that's the bottom line. There's no right or wrong. It is, and that's why I bristled at the word.
Please don't stop listening to us because of Steve's comments here. Okay, I have my own convictions on that.
It's just more about asking, and that's really where I want to go. Is asking, what would the Lord have me give?
Well,
where would He have me give? Does He want me to give to my adult children? I know plenty of people that have strong convictions about not leaving, like most of them are wealthy people, but not leaving their kids a lot of money.
Or timing it out as they get older, releasing a little bit at a time. Because you don't have the maturity to understand that in your 20s and 30s, and maybe even as you get in your 40s. Yeah. But by the time you've worked hard and seen what it takes to get somewhere, now you're going, oh, wow, now you appreciate, you're more thankful for a gift. And I can see the wisdom in spacing it out rather than just dumping it on them and stuff like that. I was even thinking today, we have an interview we did with Wes. Actually, not the interview. We were down visiting Wes and Chelsea. Remember, I got COVID that one Christmas. Yeah. And he shared some things with us he'd been holding on to for 10 years. And that was, he looked at how much we spent on Campbell with therapy and surgeries and whatever. And from his perspective,
it was also attention, though, because Campbell was needing more attention because of the issues.
But basically, one child needing more time, talent, attention, resources.
Yeah,
and that bothered him. Yeah. And so we got it all out. We looked from his perspective. We didn't condemn him for it. We totally understood. We even cried it out, and we weren't expecting any response from him. But two weeks later, he says, "Hey, I'm sorry about bringing that up. I totally get it now. As a parent, you'll do anything to help that child become healthy and successful." And it's like, yeah, ding, 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 ding. And sometimes our adult kids might still be in that space. It's like they don't have the capacity to see or understand that. That's part of their sanctification journey. God will bring them through that. We can see it coming. Not my job to point it out and saying, hey, here's why. And, I want to make myself look righteous and you've got it wrong or whatever. I'm just going to wait, love them, not say anything, keep my mouth shut, keep loving the relationship. And maybe someday God opens their hearts and they go, oh, wow, this makes sense. I see why mom and dad did what they did with their resources.
Yeah. And if you feel like perhaps you have an entitled adult child, I wouldn't hesitate. If this is bothering you, if it's something that you're holding in, and having the discussion with that adult child, you realize probably wouldn't go well or wouldn't be beneficial to the relationship, I wouldn't hesitate to pull back and just say, you know what, mom and dad are we are kind of changing the way that we look at money and how we spend it. So we're not going to be giving as much as we used to. We are not going to be paying for this and that anymore or whatever. Your adult child may have a difficult time with that, but that's okay because they'll figure it out. But, you don't want to go, you are so entitled and blah, 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 and make a bunch of you statements and have that kind of tension between you. But if you are doing the same thing over and over again and harboring resentment because of it, because you see that your child is, or your adult child is being entitled, then you've got to change something that you do so that you aren't being resentful.
Right.
So that's on you to figure out how to change that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes I feel like I'm just rambling. And I don't want to ramble. I hope that's clear. Anyway, I don't have a lot else to say.
Yeah. This is just, this is a sensitive subject. It's a difficult subject. We're offering, one perspective on this, based on our experiences growing up in our families, what we've done with our adult kids, what we hear others struggling with. I think first of all, you have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Right. But then the two of us need to be on the same page with the Father, and like what are we led to do with the resources we have while we're on earth when we're given more than what we need. And then there's that big question as well, what do we need? We can find a smaller house to live on, but but this is not about having to scale down and be poor and whatever. This is just about, having a heart for generosity. We always want to champion generosity. Mm-hmm. And then this particular subject came up for the podcast, like hey, this was our discussion we had yesterday with our adult children. And these are some of the dynamics that enter in. So we've kind of covered it as far as resentment that can build. What do you do? Again, we're leaving it out there for y'all to decide, but the two of you get on the same page and things, and think about how are we going to spend, like when we leave this earth, what are we doing with our things? Are we giving them something? Are we letting it out slowly over their age things, like putting in a trust? How do we do that? Just good time to have those conversations now, because I can get hit by a Mack truck tomorrow.
Yes.
There's a couple of them in the corner doing major construction, but.
So bottom line, this is our opinion.
This is our opinion.
Whatever it's worth, and it may be worth nothing to you.
Keep listening, though.
It is also our charge to you is really about, yes, be generous, but ask God where and when to give. And if there is something between you and your adult child, then look at yourself first and figure out what you need to change to perhaps make that better. This isn't always about them and what they're like. It's perhaps about you and what you're like, and perhaps something that you need to change.
Yeah. And I would also think too, well, in making my kids happy, if they're happy with me, then I'm okay. And that could include my generosity, my resources. So you might want to take a look at that, going, if I pull back on that, what happens if they get upset with me? Again, it's severing the emotional attachments, the apron strings, whatever, that we're pivoting from parent to partner, and parents are always supposed to take care of needs. We're supposed to get them to the dentist and the doctor, and we pay for school and stuff like that. Well, now I'm a partner, and if they have sustainable income, now what's my role? Mm-hmm. And that can go down a variety of things. If I need to give because it keeps me in good graces with them, you might want to kind of look at that. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess I want to bring up one more point too, is you kind of juggled. I don't know. It jogged my memory.
Jogged your memory.
Whatever the word is. I'm not even sure what the word.
Senior citizen stuff here.
If you at all use money to control your kids, to keep some semblance of control, that is something to look at too. And I'm not going to say much more about that because that could be a whole nother topic. But if for some reason you feel like you have a say on their life because of what you give to them financially, then I would say that's something you really need to look at too. And remember, most of our podcasts, this is what we always come back to, is look at yourself, analyze what you're doing and how you're being, and your attitudes and your thoughts and your feelings and your motives and blah, 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 blah. And look at all of those things and make sure that you have the purest of intentions to maintain that relationship with your adult children.
Yeah.
I want to end on that note.
Okay. Ding. Okay, then I'll close as I normally do. Folks, thank you for listening to the podcast. Please share us, like us, social media. I hope you guys are clicking on us for sharing us on your Facebook page when you hear something that was meaningful. And then we also have our book out, which I'll put a link to. We knocked the price down, by the way.
Oh, we did?
Yes.
Wasn't aware.
Yeah. We knocked it down to $10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So hopefully, and again, the money doesn't mean anything to us. I think Amazon sends, whatever. We don't do it for that. We do it because we want to get more of them out there. So if you were holding off because of the exorbitant high price of $12.99, we knocked it down $3. Okay. So now it's less than $1 per principal. That's a pretty good deal. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, thank you for joining us. We hope that you'll be back next week for another Parent People podcast.
Bye.